Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the bowl matchups for December 17th, 2016. I wasn't exactly sure what kind of format I was going to do for these bowl pick videos. During the regular season, I would talk about an entire weeks of matchups, talking about 20 to 25 games per video. But these videos are going to be a little bit different. I'm going to do them more on a daily basis, and as a result, less matchups per video. It's going to be more condensed as a result. So, like today, for December 17th, 2016, there's 5 bowl games, so I'm going to talk about all 5 bowl matchups today and which team has the better value bet against the spread. And then, on days where there's like 1 or 2 games, I'm just going to make a video talking about the 1 or 2 games and just kind of go on from there. These videos are going to be a little bit shorter as a result, but a little bit more consumable and just more condensed as a result, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you're interested in more pick content beyond just what I talk about in these college football videos, you can head on over to stumpthespread.com, and you can get there by clicking this logo in the top right hand corner if you're on desktop. And if you're somewhere else, like on phone or something, I'll also link Stump the Spread in the video description. Over at Stump the Spread, you can get our daily free play as well as our premium picks across all major sports if that's something that you're interested in. Alright, so in today's action, we got 5 bowl games, and I'll start with UTSA versus New Mexico. 2 teams that you probably didn't hear all that much from this year. UTSA, they were just able to get enough wins under their belt to get to bowl season, but not picking up all that many impressive wins coming out of Conference USA, really, kind of boosting their number of wins by taking advantage of some of their weaker matchups in conference. This is a UTSA squad that doesn't really do any one thing well in particular, but this is a football program that is trying to build itself up and kind of build its recruiting base there in Texas, and perhaps in the future they can have a bit more consistent success, and getting to a bowl game is always an important step in doing that. This is a team that didn't put up very impressive numbers either through the air or on the ground, but they were able to finally settle on a starting quarterback, which with Dalton Strom, which he had some success this year, not putting up huge numbers, but at least UTSA had some consistency that there under center. But this is a UTSA squad that also had their struggles on the defensive side of the ball, especially in a number of their defeats, really getting gashed quite a bit. They're coming into this bowl game, which is going to be the Gildan, New Mexico Bowl. So New Mexico getting the home state advantage here, which is, people can say it's unfair, but that's one way to get more fan representation at some of these more obscure bowl games, is to, have it in a situation where the fans don't have to travel quite as far. So we do expect New Mexico to have a lot more representation here in the crowd, and that could give them somewhat of a boost. So New Mexico, another team that you probably didn't hear all that much from this year, and part of that being because New Mexico really underperformed at the beginning of the year, really underperforming from some of their early expectations, and that really set the bar pretty low for this group. They were able to pick things up a bit come conference play, and actually, New Mexico found a ton of success on the ground. They rank as the #1 rushing attack in the nation, and they were really able to put up just some pretty impressive numbers through their triple option attack. Not the same kind of triple option that you're going to see over at Army and Navy and Air Force, but they just had a lot of success, mainly in the Mountain West Conference. They were able to pick up a number of pretty impressive blowout wins against some of the weaker teams in the conference. But New Mexico, what was really impressive for them is they tied atop their division in the Mountain West Conference with Wyoming and Boise State with 6 conference wins, and that was just a really good result for them. They lost the tiebreaker, unfortunately for them, even though they did beat Wyoming straight up in what was one of their better wins of the year, but just unfortunately for them, the cards didn't shake out in their favor with the tiebreaker situation. New Mexico getting the home state advantage here in this bowl game, and with all of the success they've had on the ground this year, we do expect the Lobos to really pick up a ton of yardage here today against this UTSA defense as they go on to outpace the Roadrunners on the scoreboard, as they go on to cover this touchdown spread. And it does help us out a bit here with the fact that this has shifted from a 7.5-point game to just a full touchdown, making it a little bit more easier to cover the spread and not get taken advantage of by that half point, perhaps, if this is a closer game than we expect. But again, siding with the Lobos here, giving the points does feel like the better bet against the spread. Moving on to what's probably the most intriguing bowl matchup of today's games. We got Houston versus San Diego State in the Las Vegas Bowl presented by Geico. Houston, they were able to get over their two big tests this year with their wins out of conference against Oklahoma and Louisville, but unfortunately for the Cougars, they had 3 conference losses in the American Athletic, and that's, not what they needed in terms of building up their resume to have a shot at making the college football playoff. Perhaps if Houston would have been able to run the table inside of conference, then they would have put together the kind of resume needed to get to the college football playoff. And that definitely could have happened, especially this year, given the fact that there's a lot of people that weren't so high on Washington necessarily. And you also have Ohio State getting in there, and they didn't even win the Big Ten title. So there was definitely room for Houston this year if they would have ran the table, but unfortunately for them, they just weren't as consistent as they needed to be. Also, Houston, motivation could be a significant influencing factor for them in this one. This is a team that was hoping to make a push for the college playoff this year, and instead of that, they lose 3 games and then have to go to Las Vegas Bowl. Not necessarily what they were having in mind once they started the year. And also, losing your head coach is never an ideal situation when heading into the postseason. It can really affect the mindset of the team and really make it tough for everyone to focus and refocus efforts into an important game like this. Houston will do their best to try to, get the players' mindset in the right direction, but that can just be really tough when a head coach leaves. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays a factor in this one. And then you have this San Diego State squad who actually put up quite a number of dominating results this year inside of the Mountain West Conference, but this is a team that just left you scratching your head on occasion. For instance, in particular, their loss on the road against South Alabama earlier in the year. That was a game that they were huge favorites in, and they went on to lose that one rather significantly. And also, towards the end of the year, San Diego State surprisingly was just throttled at home by Colorado State, and what was another game that the Aztecs were expected to win somewhat easily. But outside of those 2 results, there really aren't that many other head-scratching results for San Diego State this year. This is a team that, outside of those 2 bad losses, put up some pretty great defensive numbers, especially in the Mountain West. Teams were having a really tough time getting in the end zone against San Diego State. And then on the other side of the ball, everyone knows Donnell Pumphrey, the amazing veteran running back for San Diego State. He's probably going to try to end his career on a high note, so he's definitely going to be bringing his A game into this one, especially with probably a lot of NFL scouts in attendance for this one to see what he has to bring to the table over there for the Aztecs. San Diego State probably going to be a bit more motivated coming into this one than Houston, and getting the points here, we do feel like the Aztecs have pretty decent betting value here. Especially, they can lean quite heavily on Donnell Pumphrey, who's one of the best running backs in the nation, and he can really make a big difference here today for the Aztecs. All right, moving on to Arkansas State against Central Florida. So Arkansas State, from the games that I've seen them play this year, they didn't look all that impressive, although they did find quite a bit of success in the Sun Belt. This is a team that had a really slow start to the regular season, and people kind of forgot about the Red Wolves, but then once conference play rolled around, the Arkansas State was really able to rack up quite a number of wins as they went on a pretty significant winning streak there in conference play. Still not a team that we have all that much confidence in. It'll be interesting to see how they perform here out of conference again. And it might just be a situation where they are able to take advantage of a lot of the weaker teams in the Sun Belt, but maybe this team was able to grow a bit throughout the regular season, and it's going to be interesting to see how that translates over into this bowl game here. And this bowl is going to be the Autonation Cure Bowl going against Central Florida. So Central Florida, huge disappointment last year, obviously going winless. Bringing in a new coaching staff in the offseason, this program now seems to be headed back in the right direction. We like what we've been seeing out of Central Florida in terms of, maybe their offense isn't always the most consistent, but they have shown that they can score in all 3 phases of their game. Their defense can score. Their special teams has been a pretty big threat, and also their offense has shown the ability to get, especially when they get their ground game going, to put up some pretty decent offensive numbers. We just also, a big one in this one is we value the American Conference quite a bit more than the Sun Belt, and as a result, this Central Florida team, they have that new coaching staff this year, and they're looking to build a lot of momentum and progress, and you can really get that when winning a bowl game, especially if you do it in convincing fashion. It can really build a lot of momentum for a program. So just given all the factors here, we do feel like Central Florida giving the points is a pretty solid value bet in this particular matchup. All right, we just have two more bowl games to talk about for today's action. We're going to start with Appalachian State against Toledo. Here's a Sun Belt against MAC opponent. Appalachian State coming into the year with pretty high expectations. Outside of conference, they weren't able to pick up some of the wins they would have needed to maybe push themselves into the top 25. They really did compete really well in their opening game on the road against Tennessee, but Appalachian State did end up falling in that one in overtime, unfortunately for them. Later on in the non-conference, they wanted to get blown out at home by Miami in a game where you could just really see that Appalachian State was completely outmanned physically by a much better ACC opponent. Appalachian State found quite a bit of success this year in the Sun Belt, taking advantage of a lot of the easier teams. One of their losses did come against Troy on the road in what was a pretty competitive matchup for Appalachian State. Now, this is obviously a really good team for Appalachian State coming out of the Sun Belt. One of the best all-around teams, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You're not going to get much better than this Mountaineer squad in terms of Sun Belt competition on the defensive end. Unfortunately for the Mountaineers, they were a little less consistent on the and dominant on the offensive end than they wanted to be this year, but still a really strong campaign for them overall. They're coming into this bowl game against a Toledo team who was arguably the second best team in the MAC this year. With the games that I saw with Toledo this year, they were pretty impressive. For instance, I remember watching their season opener on the road against another Sun Belt team in Arkansas State, and they really just dominated that particular matchup, really shutting down Arkansas State's offensive attack. And this Toledo group on the other side of the ball has one of the best passing threats in the nation. You have Logan Woodside, who's put up just a tremendous amount of numbers this year through the air. But Toledo's not just a one-trick pony with their pass game. They also have some pretty talented running backs that can move the ball and help keep drives alive and keep things going consistently. Toledo's defense had a tough time in their last outing against a really strong Western Michigan squad, but they should have a bit more success here against an Appalachian State offense that isn't quite to the level of that Western Michigan group. This should be a pretty competitive matchup, but when you take a top-tier MAC team against a top-tier Sun Belt team, more often than not, I'm probably going to be siding with the MAC team. I do value their conference depth anyways from top to bottom a little bit more than the Sun Belt, and in what's basically a pick 'em, we do like Toledo here to cover the spread as a pretty solid value bet. And we just have one more bowl game to talk about for December 17th's action, and that's going to be Southern Miss against Louisiana-Lafayette in the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl. The New Orleans Bowl, a little bit of a home field advantage, I guess, somewhat for Louisiana-Lafayette, but not even necessarily. Southern Miss doesn't really have all that far to travel either. Both teams should have a pretty decent representation in the crowd. This is a Southern Miss team that really disappointed this year. Most people figured you could just write this squad down for 10 wins based on all the veteran talent they returned from last year's team that found quite a bit of success. Unfortunately for Southern Miss, even though they opened with quite a number of wins, they really faded throughout the middle and end of action over in Conference USA. Unfortunately for them, they weren't able to live up to their high expectations. This is a veteran group, however, and they will look to kind of end things on the right note. And for instance, Southern Miss, they have a lot of pride, and they showed that in their regular season finale. They came into that particular matchup as quite significant underdogs at home against Louisiana Tech, but Southern Miss came into that one with a lot of confidence, and they were able to control the action as they went on to actually win that one by a couple touchdowns in what was more of the kind of results you'd expect to see out of Southern Miss this year. We just didn't get those nearly as often as people would have expected. They're coming into this bowl game against Louisiana-Lafayette, who's a team that you probably didn't hear all that much from this year. This is a team that found some success again in the Sun Belt. There's a lot of teams in the Sun Belt that you can pick up consistent wins against on a yearly basis, just based on some of the weaker programs that are in that particular conference. But Louisiana-Lafayette has, they put up some pretty decent numbers this year, but Jalen Nix being out for this one really hurts their ability on the offensive side of the ball. Going against this Southern Miss veteran defense, it's going to be interesting to see what kind of success they're able to have on that particular side of the ball. There's just a lot of factors in this particular bowl where we think that Southern Miss is going to have a lot more motivation. This is, again, a veteran team that is going to try to send out their seniors on the right note, and you can do that with a significant bowl win. And with Jalen Nixon being out for Louisiana-Lafayette, that's just going to make things a little bit tougher for them in this one. The spread has shifted from 2 points to 3.5, but even with that being the case, we still feel like the Golden Eagles are the better value bet to win and cover this manageable spread here. And that pretty much wraps it up for December 17th bowl games. A lot of action on the board today. Maybe not some of the most exciting games. I guess out of this lot of games, the ones I'd be most interested in is probably going to be this Houston-San Diego State game, and then probably this Appalachian State Toledo game. And then behind that, I'd probably put Arkansas Central Florida. But anyways, if you're looking for more content beyond just what we have in this video, again, you can head on over to stumpthespread.com, get our daily free play over there, or you can also upgrade to our premium picks. And if you can, thumbs up and click subscribe. It's greatly appreciated and really helps us out. If you click that subscribe button, you can get notifications of when I release my other bowl pick videos, which will be on more of a daily basis here coming up. Just a lot of action to come, and it's going to be really exciting to watch a lot of these bowl games. So hope you're as excited as I am, and I'll see you in the next bowl pick video. Bye.